Putin is threatening the United States and NATO if they continue to enable Ukraine to further invade and shoot long-range missiles within Russia. All right? I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Make sure I hit a like for the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel with turn on your notifications. Let's get to it.
President Biden will meet with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer over at the White House. They will discuss allowing Ukraine potentially to use long-range weapons provided by the U.S. and other Western NATO allies deep into Russian territory. President Biden has been facing increasing bipartisan pressure to try to loosen the restrictions and is signaling a new openness. The Russian President, Vladimir Putin, is delivering a rather chilling warning just ahead of today's meeting.
This is their direct involvement. And this, of course, would, in a significant way, change the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. It will mean that NATO countries, the United States and European countries, are at war with Russia.
Russia is very clearly, and the one thing that I know about people, I've been playing poker for a long time. I've been talking to people for a long time. I've been debating with people for a long time. I done had a lot of conversations, maybe not with Russians, but with people. And people are the same across the board. And the one thing that I know about people is that when they say stuff calm, that's when you should get scared. It's not when they all tough and buff. Hold me back. Hold me back. I'm going to get him. Hold me. It's not when a person start getting all turned up when everybody get there because they know it ain't nobody. It ain't none of that. Police outside, I dare you. Say something. Say something. It's never that guy. Whenever somebody in person or whenever somebody is expressing to you something very calmly, hey, listen, this is a direct, this is what Putin, this is how he said it. Hey, listen, this is a direct threat against the Russian regime. And the more you continue to participate, the more you are indirectly declaring yourself as an enemy of Russia, and we will not have it. We will not have it. Yeah. Would you tell them? We Russell best. We Russell best. We not having it. Nope. So play it how you see fit, but Vladimir Kriskov, El Hydra. Whenever they talk real cool, I start getting a little sketchy. I'm like, he just a little too cool. He just a little too chill. You know what I'm saying? I don't like people that talk calm and is directly addressing a situation in person. You know what I'm saying? So Trump warned us about this. And Trump said, listen, guys, I'm telling you, the one thing that y'all not considering, y'all going to keep on, these people got nuclear weapons. Regardless of what side of the fence you on, two things is for sure. Number one, we don't want to continue to have and participate in these international proxy wars because we had unprecedented peace when I was in office for 4 years. We had no wars, no proxy wars, no none of that. We was trying to get American troops home. We was making sure that we was pulling out. But your friends over in the Harris-Biden administration, they completely fumbled the Afghanistan pullout, and they left $80 billion worth of weapons over there. And so now they took all of our weapons and we just chilling. Second thing is, they got nukes. I don't know if y'all forgot that part, but they got nukes. So, we might want to be a little bit careful with how we go and handle this, guys. So that's what Vladimir Putin said to the people.
Basically saying it would be an act of war. Our chief national security correspondent, Alex Marquardt, is here with me in the CNN newsroom. This would be a major shift if the Biden administration and other NATO allies allowed these longer range missiles to be used, that the NATO allies are providing to Ukraine, to be used against Russian targets deeper inside Russia.
It would, and that's why we're hearing that reaction from Vladimir Putin. We are talking about the longest range U.S. missile that the U.S. has given to Ukraine. It's called an ATACMS. It goes around 200 miles or 300 kilometers, and the Ukrainians have essentially been begging the U.S. to be allowed to use it. At the same time, they're also asking the Brits to use an equivalent missile called a Storm Shadow. That's why it's both the British and and the Americans who have to come to this decision. Now, we could see a possibility in which the U.S. says we don't want the Ukrainians to use the ATACMS, but Brits, go ahead, you guys can use, or the Ukrainians can use the Storm Shadows. But this would change the battlefield, Wolf. Now, to be clear, the U.S. has already given Ukraine permission to fire across the border with shorter range missiles. But this is, again, the longest range missile that we have seen the U.S. give to Ukraine so far. So we have seen this openness from both President Biden and his Secretary of State, who has been in the region. He was in Kyiv just a couple days ago, Secretary Blinken saying, as the battlefield changes, so too does U.S. policy evolve. This is language that we've heard in the past. So there is a good chance that the U.S. does allow this to happen. But what is the effect? There is the risk of escalation, which is really what President Biden is certainly afraid of. And we hear that threat from President Putin. There is a question of supply. There's not an infinite supply of these ATACMS. They're quite precious. And the U.S. thinks that they could be put to better use inside of Ukraine, in those Russian-occupied areas, in Crimea, for example. And then there's also the question of how much of an impact will they actually have once they're inside Russia? Now, in recent weeks, Ukrainian officials have come here to Washington to make their case. They presented a list of targets. I spoke with the Ukrainian defense minister who said that included airfields. Now, that very well may be, but U.S. officials also point to the fact that some of those Russian targets may be moved out of range. And so at the end of the day, those ATACMS may not actually be all that effective. But if the U.S. and Britain do give Ukraine that permission, it would certainly send a strong message, Wolf.
And Putin is suggesting that could be an act of war.
Yes, and this is something that we have heard from him before. Frankly, not much would change except the range on these missiles, because these missiles, shorter range missiles, are already being fired inside of Russia. But President Biden is coming under significant pressure from his own camp, from senators like Jeanne Shaheen and Ben Cardin, both of whom are on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They would like to see the U.S. to loosen those restrictions. Even if it didn't have a major military impact, it would certainly...
I'm going to just tell you, I have zero confidence in Biden. I have zero, and I mean zero, confidence in Biden. And I certainly have no confidence in Kamala Harris whatsoever to solve for this or to eventually end this war. We are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we need somebody to absolutely figure out how we can get peace, because these forever wars is tired. Man, we've been in war since I've been born. The only time that I can possibly remember that I personally, and this is me personally, the only time that and I could be wrong, but the only time that I remember since I was a little kid of us not being in war or getting out of war completely was from 2016 and 2020. Now, maybe a lot of people was upset about that because they was messing with their pockets. But at the same time, Trump was rebuilding our military because we wasn't so stretched thin and allocating all of these resources into other places and being a part of NATO, which did not serve us because we was putting the majority of the money inside of NATO. The only time that I remember the Gulf War. I remember, what was that? The war with Saddam Hussein. I remember all of these different wars that we just been a part of our entire life. Afghanistan, the Taliban, the Better Man, Bruh Man from the 6th floor. I remember all of these wars that we just been, my entire life, I've been accustomed to hearing about war. My entire life, I've been accustomed to hearing about war. War for oil, war for resources, 9/11 war, war to war, Lord of war, war to the war wars. It's like, I can't remember Desert Storm. That's what it was called. It was called Desert Storm. I can't remember when we actually started to divest from war, except for in 2016 through 2020, when we were actually not having a new war being instituted, and then we were actually pulling back from it. Because every other administration, it seemed like it was, we're going to go in this war, we're going to start this war. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to try to end this war, we need to have some level of world peace. I just don't remember it. I don't remember it in my lifetime, and so I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of all of our tax dollars continuing to fund all of this BS and all of this other stuff. Yeah, war on drugs and terror too. Throw that in there. The war on terror. Just tired, bro. Just tired, boss. We don't need no new wars. We need to fix what we got here. We got failing infrastructure, failing schools, failing cities, failed government, fail all across the board. I'm just tired. I'm tired of being in war. I'm tired of war movies. Same way I'm tired of slave movies, unless it's Saving Private Ryan.